Well, my name is Scott Wilcox, and this is my podcast called Down Holiday Road.
Up in the Midwest,
Today we're going to talk a
find
little bit
great
about
place
sacrifice.
to go.
In the last
Pick
episode,
up
I
a
talked about
guitar
my
and
grandpa
watch a
and how my
corn
grandpa
grow.
sort of just dropped everything to
Sitting
become
on
my
the
father
front
figure when my
porch,
father
sipping
died.
on a cup of Joe.
Well, I probably
Way
didn't tell enough
down
about this, but
Holiday
he made a
Road.
lot more sacrifices than just that. My grandpa was an amazing guy, to say the least. Before World War II, he was a trumpeter and played trumpet with Wayne King, a big band guy back in the big band days. And he was just phenomenal, just absolutely amazing trumpeter. And he really kind of thought his career was taking off. He just started playing with Wayne King. All sorts of other things happened. When he signed up for the Army, actually he was asked by Wayne King to play with Wayne King for the troops in the Army. But things got a little bit tougher while he was there, and he went to the Battle of the Bulge. Now, during the Battle of the Bulge, I don't know if you know anything about it, it was a pretty horrible, cold battle. And so during the Battle of the Bulge, they were given kind of bare minimum rations for ammunition because they didn't think the Germans were going to come through that part of the forest. But they did. So when the Germans came through, they just mowed right over the American troops that were there. In fact, they knew they were going to get captured. And so as the Germans were storming upon their unit, Grandpa was part of the 101st, and he just before they were overcome with tanks and such, Grandpa hollered out to all the other soldiers to smash your guns against the trees so that at least, maybe we can't use them, but they can't either. So they all did that. The Germans eventually overran their position. Many of them were killed. When he stood up out of his foxhole, his partner in his foxhole was dead, and everybody else, as far as he could see, was dead. But over a little bit of time, you could start to hear voices. So there were others. As they came up out of their foxholes, they immediately were captured by the Germans. The Germans took them all and put them in a big group. They took their U.S. uniforms and they gave them German uniforms. They took them out of their boots and they gave them special boots with paper soles in them. And then they asked them to march. Well, they started marching, and they marched for over 100 miles. In the cold snow, just freezing weather. There were 3,000 men in his unit that had survived, and out of those 3,000, only 300 made it through that march. See, what happened is along the way they'd freeze to death. Because the Germans put them in German uniforms, the Americans would fly over them in airplanes, and they'd strafe them, and a lot of them didn't survive that. Finally, the soldiers got smart enough, and they put their jackets in a big USA on the snow, and eventually the American planes knew they were Americans and waved their wings, and away they went. They didn't see them after that, but they still had all the other problems. Because those boots they gave them with the paper soles would roll up in the snow, and their feet would just get wet and cold, and they'd freeze. And once your feet were froze, they'd just lay down on the side of the trail and they'd die. It was just horrific to think what he had to go through. But he finally got to the end of that part of the march, and there was only 300 left. They put him into boxcars, and in those boxcars, they were strafed along the way by American planes again, and a lot of them died from plane strafing overhead, strafing the boxcars. But he survived that too. And they eventually got to a concentration camp where they were all put into camps and separated from each other. There were other prisoners there of all sorts of different countries, and he had a tough time there too because there was a lot of violence in those camps. They weren't given much food. They were given sawdust bread and potato peeling soup to eat, as Grandpa said, or else whatever they could find scurrying across the floor. It wasn't pretty. But he sat there in that camp for months, till finally they were rescued by the Americans. When the Americans finally rescued him, he was down to 98 pounds, and he'd lost all of his teeth from malnutrition. For anyone else, you'd think, well, you should be lucky to be alive even. And he was. He felt lucky to be alive. But see, the thing that people didn't figure on is my grandpa, he was a musician and he played trumpet. When he got into the Army, he knew darn well he could die. He signed this contract that said, you could die. And I don't know why, but he came to terms with that somehow. The part he didn't come to terms with, what if he didn't die? What if he just lost his music? Because if you don't have any teeth, you can't play trumpet. At least not to the same level. So he came back home and he got some dentures and he played as well as he could. He played, taps for the VFW locally and, would go out and jam with the boys once in a while. Got into some barbershop groups, started working at the VA hospital in Toma. And, that's just kind of how he got restarted. Well, as I said, when my father left, my grandpa stood in to be that guy that knew he had a responsibility, even though he didn't have to take that responsibility. After the war, since he couldn't do his music, he invested his time into my Uncle Bob, which became a band director in Kewanee, Wisconsin for 30 years, and he was amazing. And then he invested his time into me and taught me how to play music when I was 12 years old. And I've been kind of writing and playing ever since. I don't think I'd be doing it if it wasn't for his inspiration back then. So, needless to say, Grandpa was fortunate in a lot of ways, though. He had a beautiful family and raised all of us grandkids. And he lived to be 93 years old. Now, before he passed away, he was at the VA hospital, which was kind of appropriate because the first job he got when he got out of the Army was the VA hospital, and he worked there. Well, after he'd worked there for a while, he then retired, and he volunteered there. And he did barbershop quartets and volunteered as a cook and all sorts of other things. He did that too. And then when it was his time to go, he died there. So needless to say, the VA has a pretty important place in our heart. But before Grandpa passed away, I made sure that I went to see him as much as I could. One of those particular days, I went to see him. I came in the door, and a lot of times when you come into the ward where someone's at, you see kind of the same people there, as patients, whatever, and they're always kind of mulling around that area towards the door. So as I came in, I ran into this guy, and what really stuck out to me was he was younger than I was, which was unusual, and he was sitting in a wheelchair, and he'd lost his legs. And he looks up at me, and I got this guitar backpack thing that I always kind of carry around with my guitar, and he says, "Hey, can you play me Amazing Grace?" I'm embarrassed to say, at the time, I didn't know how to play Amazing Grace on the guitar. I was kind of just learning at the time. And but Grandpa said, if you know the 3 chords, you can play any song in history. So I figured out 3 chords and played a miserable version of Amazing Grace for the guy. After I got done singing the song, he just looked at me and he shook my hand and he said, "You have absolutely no idea how much that means to me." Well, quite honestly, I didn't. But I figured, I just shook his hand and I said, "Thank you so much for your service." And away I went. Man, I didn't know what else to do, Here's a guy who sacrificed everything, and what have I sacrificed? It's kind of humbling. So I moved on, went to see Grandpa. We had a great time. But a few days later, I came back again, and I thought I'd run into that guy, because a lot of times, like I said, they're all kind of hanging out there. But weirdest thing, the guy wasn't there. But this male nurse comes running up to me, and he's like, "Oh, my gosh, what did you say to that guy in the wheelchair last time you were here?" And I was like, he's kind of a big guy, so I was a little intimidated, And so I said, well, I didn't say much of anything to him. Actually, he asked me if I'd sing Amazing Grace, so I sang him the song, and that was it, really. And he looks at me, And he's like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. And I kind of laughed because I was like, actually, it was a pretty horrible version of Amazing Grace. And he said, what you don't understand is that guy wasn't in here because he'd lost both of his legs. He was in here because he was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. 2 years earlier, in the Persian Gulf, he'd lost his legs in an IED explosion. And it was so horrific for him that since the day of that injury, he hadn't spoken one word. I mean, they call that selective mutism from the stress. And the very first words he spoke was, can you sing me Amazing Grace? Now, I kid you not. I was shocked. From the time I was this big, whatever, all I wanted to be is a rock star, you know? And I realized in that moment that life's not at all about being a big rock star. It's about making a big difference. So it doesn't matter if I play music for 5 people or 50 people or 500 or 45 million, like I did in Oprah. It's not about the number of people. It's about that chance that just maybe I get the opportunity and the blessing to be able to play for somebody who just really needs the song. So I keep playing. So this is a song I wrote about that experience, and it's a song called Locally Famous, Widely Unknown. Then after that, I'm going to sing you my grandpa's song, which is a song called Germany in 43. It goes like this. Locally famous, widely unknown. It's okay cause I don't mind being deeded close to home. And I'm locally famous, widely askew. It's okay cause I don't mind staying pretty close to you. Walked into Walmart, the guy shakes my hand and he says, that song played last night made my wife get up and dance. See, she wasn't feeling well, lost her will to fight. But after that song I played, she said everything'll be alright. And I'm locally famous, widely unknown. It's okay cause I don't mind being needed close to home. And I'm locally famous, widely skewed. It's okay cause I don't mind staying pretty close to you. Went to the VA to visit my grandpa. Met a man who lost his legs in the Persian Gulf War. Sang him a little song called Amazing Grace. Who would have thought I was Willie Nelson by the smile on his face? And I'm locally famous, widely unknown. It's okay cause I don't mind being needed close to home. And I'm locally famous, widely skewed. It's okay cause I don't mind staying pretty close to you. When I was a young boy, I dreamt to be a star. Now I know that to change the world, you don't have to go that far. And I'm locally famous, widely unknown. It's okay cause I don't mind being needed close to home. And I'm locally famous, widely skewed. It's okay cause I don't mind staying pretty close to you. Yeah, yeah. It's okay cause I don't mind staying pretty close to you. Well, that's my locally famous song. Now, before I pick out this other song here, this song called Germany in 43. And as I said earlier, my grandpa went through a lot during World War II. And this song, when I first wrote it, I really didn't think that it would appeal to a lot of people. I thought for some reason maybe it would just appeal to World War II vets. And quite honestly, sadly, there aren't many of those left. But it's weird. I just kept playing the song. And the more I played the song, the more I realized that veterans from just about every single war kept coming up to me and say, "Thank you so much." It's really nice to hear a song from somebody that knows what war is like. Well, the sad part is I don't. But I spent a whole childhood hearing the stories from my grandpa telling about what his opinion was of what war was like. Now, Grandpa always said the reason why he told us those stories is so that someday maybe we would choose not to go to war because we knew how horrible it really was. I don't know if we've learned that as a population. Hopefully we all have grandpas that help us out in that area and we can figure it out eventually. So this is a song I wrote for my grandpa. It's called Germany in 43. Now it's called Germany in 43 because that was the year that he became a prisoner of war. But it's really, more about the feeling of the song itself and what it felt to be in the position he was. So it's probably not as historically accurate, but I wanted it in a way for everyone to relate to it. So I hope you like it. Goes like this. Grandma wrote me in the winter of 43. She asked me if I knew who was winning the war. She said Bobby and Sandy were growing strong. She let me know the latest Packers score. They've been down Normandy in Germany, in a foxhole with bombshells all around. Then I made a promise to my maker and me to make it back to my hometown. This is real, this is how it was for me on a field in Germany in 43. This was real when men fought and died to defend American lives in my hometown. I got captured in the woods in Germany. They took my clothes and they even took my boots. Went for a long march, 100 miles or more. Buddies were dying there by the score. Then I bent down on my knee in Germany, with bullets and bombshells all around. Then I made a promise to my maker and me to make it back to my hometown. This is real, this is how it was for me on a field in Germany in 43. This was real when men fought and died to defend American lives in my hometown. After many months in a German prison camp, eating potato peel and soup in the cold and damp, I looked up into that cloudy German sky. I felt that I could cry when I folded my hands. I bent down on my knee in Germany. shelling stopped and just couldn't hear a sound. Lifted up my 98-pound body, and there were Americans all around. Now, 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 now. This is real, that's how it was for me on a field in Germany in 43. This was real when I fought and then survived to defend American lives, my hometown. Said this is real, that's how it was for me on a field in Germany in 43. This was real when men fought and died to defend American lives in my hometown. I stepped off the plane and kissed my little girl, and never forget that smile upon her face. This is real, this is how it was for me on a field in Germany in 43. This was real when I fought and then survived to defend American lives in my hometown. This is real, this is how it was for me on a field in Germany in 43. This was real when men fought and died to defend American lives in my hometown. Well, that's my show, Down Holiday Road. I appreciate you guys coming on out. And please like and subscribe. It's the only way I can keep doing this for a lot longer. And I truly appreciate you coming and sharing your time with me today. Tell all your friends about it. Have them subscribe too. It's the quickest way for me to grow. Each episode is going to give you a little bit of a story about something from my life that has to do with a song that I've written, and maybe some of the thoughts and the emotions that go along with it. So I hope you guys like the format. It's something new for me, but I hope it's uplifting to you, and I hope it helps you in some way. If you know somebody that this might be helpful for, maybe send them the link and say, hey, this might be good for you to watch. Thanks again for coming on out. And again, my name is Scott Wilcox. You can check out all my other information about my music and everything at scottwilcox.com. Thank you so much.